Hello, everyone. My name is Gitika Gorthy, and today I'm very, very honored and excited to be introducing a very special space champion, Bob Collom. Bob currently serves as an integration lead on the Mars Reconnaissance Team at NASA headquarters. Bob serves as a deputy executive secretary by helping manage the activities and meetings of the International Mars Exploration Working Group, a group of 28 space agencies looking to collaborate in Martian exploration. Most recently, I met Bob at the Humans to Mars Summit that took place in Washington, D.C. I absolutely loved his energy and the work he was talking about at NASA, and really can't wait to dive into how he discovered his passion for space that led him to come work at NASA today. So welcome, Bob. Thank you so much for taking your time to inspire the next generation.
Good. Thank you, Gitika. It's great to be able to chat with you.
Yeah, before we get into getting into like the meat of what really got you inspired and excited about space, because I know everybody has a very different journey into the industry. Could you first, maybe tell us a little bit more about your typical day? I know usually there isn't a typical day, but how does your day usually run?
Well, if you've already stolen my answer, yeah, I would say there's hardly ever a typical day. We actually, our team gets together every morning to kind of talk about what are the priorities for the day, because things can change pretty rapidly at NASA headquarters and for our team. We're usually helping coordinate between a lot of different folks, all working together to advance human exploration of Mars, whether they're other teams at NASA or their commercial entities or in academia or internationally, as you mentioned. And, each of those groups is going to have their own needs, their own priorities. And so sometimes, we're waking up the day and we think, oh, we've got a couple meetings, we'll review one of our public outreach pieces or something. But nope, we got an email from Japan the night before, and we need to help provide input on a PowerPoint that they're looking to put together for their management. Or there's the director of the Planetary Science Division giving a presentation later this week, and she wants us to help review the document. So things change a lot, but it's a lot of, getting to work with people. It's a lot of interpersonal communications. And so that keeps it fun and keeps it exciting.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing that. And, in your introduction, I was mentioning how, your work involves working with and looking into collaborating with different space organizations and organizations across the country. And I was mentioning 28 different companies. And so kind of getting into this collaboration aspect of exploration into Mars travel, what do you think is going to be the biggest obstacle? I know we literally had the whole convention on Humans to Mars, and so we got some really great insight, but from your perspective, from your experience so far, what do you think is going to be like the biggest challenge for this cooperation to maybe take place to advance towards Mars? Or do you think that we're already past that initial phase of collaboration and now it's just a matter of taking it forward?
I think it's kind of been a recent challenge that we've run into is kind of the mechanisms for enabling this collaboration. Because NASA has a history as, the space agency for such a long time, a lot of the relationships we've had previously have been, another country is contributing an instrument, another country is contributing some, participating scientists. But as we're looking ahead towards, something as big and kind of complicated as human exploration of Mars, it's going to have to be much more, partnering on equal footing. Where and looking towards the International Space Station as kind of a model for it. But as you may know, the International Space Station took a couple decades to put together, get all the agreements and the pieces in place, and figuring out how to streamline that and just how to do it more frequently so that we can carry out, because it's not just going to be one mission. We'll need precursor missions, and kind of the sequence of the whole Humans to Mars campaign is going to require a lot more collaboration than we've been doing up to this point.
Yeah, definitely trying to make sure. I think the ISS, like you were mentioning, is a very good starting point because it's like a gateway into collaborating with other countries and getting those agreements and treaties and the initial discussions. Because now we're looking into collaborating for Mars, I feel like it'll be a little bit easier of a transition, and not as easy, but at least it's like a foundation you could rely on. So thank you for mentioning that. And I'm curious a little bit to learn more about your specific role as an integration lead at NASA. So what does it mean to be an integration lead?
Sure. So something that kind of surprised me when I started working at NASA is how often we would go and talk to, say folks at the Glenn Research Center, and we'd be telling them about work that's taking place at the Goddard Research Center, and they wouldn't know that this research was going on, even though they were complementary, or the worst case you could have is that they were redundant to each other. And so a lot of kind of the work we do, because there's so many different pieces, not just within NASA, but again, looking all across the space industry, figuring out how we bring those folks who are working on, complementary projects or whose knowledge can help advance someone else's work. It's a lot of bringing those people together to kind of have a conversation around the same table, so that we're getting the most out of the effort we're putting in.
Yeah, and oh, sorry, go ahead.
The other piece I would add is just that because it's such a diverse community, a lot of kind of the day-to-day work that I get involved in, I would describe as translation work. It's not because these different, they all speak English, and even our international partners, but they don't all speak the same language. Engineers and scientists do not speak the same language. That community doesn't speak the same language as NASA management, and none of them speak the same language as the public. So figuring out how to take a 500-page engineering report and turn it into, that one-page bulleted list that NASA managers need to make budget decisions. That's a lot of the practical aspects of my job.
Yeah, and you mentioned really two great points. One, I think, is with the different centers, how I didn't actually know that the projects weren't so clearly put out for, or like split amongst the centers. So it's interesting to know how the communication is like so important at NASA and how it's important to like communicate. So you're not using the same, and there's so many things going on at NASA. I think it's hard to keep up with everything all the time, but definitely I think streamlining that communication is important, and also bringing the knowledge to the general public. I remember I was talking with you earlier during the conference, and we were talking about the importance of communicating this really complicated information that probably only 1% of the world can understand with the rest, so they understand the value of the aerospace industry. And even if people are in the industry, they don't necessarily know all those complicated scientific or engineering terminology because they might be in a completely different sector. So like you were mentioning, I think it's so important to bring that communication piece in. So I'm glad that you're able to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of jargon and a lot of acronyms. And then figuring out how to just get those across is sometimes plenty of work.
Yeah, I remember I was an intern at NASA Ames Research Center last summer, and there was a lot of jargon, a lot of acronyms mostly that were being put together on a slideshow, and I would see all these different letters. So I'm like, what does that one stand for again? Or what is this again? And I'd be writing them down because it's like just so much to keep up with. So yeah, I can imagine. And at NASA, I've talked with so many cool people at NASA, including yourselves, and everybody has such a cool experience at NASA with so many incredible memories, whether it be a rocket launch or meeting an astronaut or, really just so many different things. And so I'm curious to hear, what is your favorite memory so far at NASA?
I think there's two that come to mind as kind of stand out. One was just as part of my work with the International Mars Exploration Working Group, we host annual face-to-face meetings. And the first one I got to attend was hosted in Berlin, Germany, which was great. And during the conference, we try to, you don't just want to sit in a meeting room all day. That gets very boring. So we try to do things, outside of the conference room that maybe, either tie to space exploration or help kind of touch on the conversations we're having at the meeting. And so while we were in Berlin, we actually got to visit it was one of the test sites where Werner von Braun was doing his very first rocketry tests, just south of Berlin. And it's in ruins now. It did not survive World War II or the Soviet occupation thereafter, but these just kind of like skeletal concrete structures where you still have scorch marks on the concrete. It was just kind of a surreal, like, wow, all this started here, and now we're thinking about the next step. So that was a really cool memory. And the other one that it was just like a great, saw this project to completion. I was the NASA headquarters deputy representative on the Mars 2020 rover naming contest. So when we actually got to announce the names, Perseverance and Ingenuity, and hosted that event down in Virginia, and just seeing a couple of years of work come together, and how excited the public was about the name, how fitting it was in the the time frame we were doing it in. It was just really satisfying and very rewarding.
Yeah, those are incredible experiences. I think being able to have that opportunity to go, first of all, to a different country and then visit such a historic place that I wish hopefully one day I could go visit. It sounds really cool. I think it would be incredible. I'm surprised that you were able to still see it kind of somewhat intact. So, I mean, not all of it, but some of it. So I think that's very cool. And also, I didn't know you were part of the, the administration team in terms of the naming for the rovers. I absolutely loved the name for Ingenuity. I was like, wow, like I can't believe a little kid came up with that, and was able to explain it so well of why we should use Ingenuity, which completely makes sense. It's just something that never came up into my mind. So I think that's so creative. Kind of diverting a little bit away from your personal experiences and your job at NASA, I'm more curious about your journey now. Growing up, everybody has fascinations for space, but I think there's always this moment where you just know that you want to be a part of the industry, and this can happen really at any age. There's no one moment. So I'm wondering how that what was that aha moment for you that made you want to come into the industry?
Well, I think there was a moment that got me just excited about the cosmos, and that was when I was really young, maybe like 9 or 10, I think. I grew up in New Mexico, where it was very in a small little town, Los Alamos, and the night skies are beautiful, and my parents would take me out and we'd look at the stars. But what really made it click for me was I read Ender's Game, the science fiction novel by Orson Scott Card. And it was just like, I want to be that kid. I want to go into space. I want to help, I don't know, explore new places. I know it's all about like aliens and stuff, but
it always is.
as a 9-year-old, yeah, it was great. And then, but it took me a while, pretty much until I was in college, to really, think about a career in the aerospace industry, because I wasn't as drawn to my math classes as I was to my, literature and writing classes. And so I came to school for a political science degree, and I was thinking, I'd get involved in like campaign work or something. But the more I learned about that, the less I liked it. And then there was a class offered one fall on spaceflight policy. And I was just like, this is a field that I could do. I could take my writing skills and my love of science fiction and just do them and get paid for it. Yes, please, sign me up. So yeah, between those two experiences, it shaped my career trajectory.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know how interdisciplinary space is. And really through the interview series, one thing that I love to highlight is the diverse career options. Because as I was mentioning at the conference as well, I didn't know space medicine was a real career, to be honest, until I searched it up, just randomly, hoping to get one hit result, if anything. And it was a real career, and it was like something that people were actually practicing. And so when I started mentioning this to my friends, or just started like researching more about space policy, space art, and these space philosophy, and all these different cool intersections. I was telling them like, hey, have you ever considered this? And they're like, that's a real job, or you could really do that. Are you sure? And I'm like, yes, it's real. And so I think just really highlighting that is so important. And I'm glad that you were able to find this opportunity in your college experiences to combine these together and, do two things that you love at the same time. So that's amazing. And through this process, did you have any obstacles, whether it be related to the career or working at NASA, or maybe when you're in your regular workplace? Did you have any obstacles? And if so, how were you able to overcome them?
I mean, sure. I think the biggest one for me was that trying to find just a way to get my foot in the door at NASA in the policy field, because I was looking on interns.nasa.gov, and it was all mechanical engineering or electrical engineering or being a research scientist, and it just wasn't where my degree work was relevant. Yeah. So I really feel like I lucked out because I found an opportunity through the NASA History Office that was, it wasn't listed on the normal website, but it was just a way to get my foot in the door at NASA headquarters. It was an unpaid internship at the time. So that was a challenge because I was still doing grad school and I was bartending at night. It was a very busy time in my life.
I bet. Wow.
But through the internship, I got introduced to, I did what any good intern should do, which is talk to as many people as I could over the course of the internship.
Pro tip.
Just to try to learn about, what other jobs were out there and how I might be able to apply my experience at NASA. That's not really, I felt I was lacking that in my college education, what the jobs actually look like besides professor. Felt like a lot of the feedback I was getting. And through that process, I met my current boss, and he kind of surprise job interviewed me. And even then, it wasn't really the end. And this is something I would recommend to anyone trying to get involved in NASA: is you really have to be kind of pleasantly persistent. The folks you're going to be talking to, the folks you're trying to get a job with or learn about opportunities through, they're really busy people. Like NASA is taxed, let me tell you, as far as people's time and the number of projects they have to work on. So, it was like following up every couple of weeks, every month or so. Hey, I'm still really interested in Mars. Here's what I'm doing in my grad program. Oh, did you see this story about Curiosity? What do you think that means for the, potential of life on Mars? And just trying to, keep in touch, maintain that level of interest, and stay up to date on the field so I could have a meaningful conversation when the opportunity arose. But yeah, eventually it worked out, and I got currently working as a contractor, and got that job through the conversations I started at my internship. So it's been going well since then.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story, because I think a lot of times, when I first met you, I didn't know about your, how you got your NASA internship and how you had to work even at night as a bartender in order to stay in grad school, do all of the grad school work, and then be an intern at NASA and then work. Like, I can't imagine how busy your life must have been at that point, but it was all that dedication that enabled you to really get where you are today and even beyond in the future. But, when you look at someone's position right now, you don't look at all of that behind work or the work that they did go through. And so I think it's nice to just sometimes hear that they also went through a lot of work to get to where they are today, just didn't magically come, which encourages you to work harder as well. And, you're fairly young. A lot of people in the aerospace industry are on the older side. And so I'm curious, did you ever have maybe obstacles regarding your age? And if you did, you weren't taken seriously, or you were viewed as being naive or young or just not knowledgeable enough yet. And if you did, how were you able to still input your ideas and voice your thoughts, even if you might be scared to, because everybody else in the room might be more experienced than you? How did you get yourself to be confident enough to speak out in a room full of knowledgeable experts?
Sure. when it was definitely a lot of imposter syndrome at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's like, do I fit into this job? Am I qualified enough? I was still finishing my grad degree actually when I started, so I was doing it part time, and like, what am I doing here? But I think what has helped me, and I am not the most senior expert in all things Mars. That's part of what I like about this job, is that I get to interact with people who know so much more than me every day. And so I don't think I have totally overcome the challenges of being early career, because I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what has helped me find my confidence and find like a place where I'm comfortable is kind of leaning into the skills that I think I'm great at. So for me, it's writing. And so rather than, maybe like taking the podium and like leading the conference, hey, I volunteered to be the note taker and then get to work on the report that's going to come out of the workshop after the fact. And in that way, I still get to be very involved in the process. I find for me, actually, it really helps me pay attention and digest the information when there's so much going on at these events. But I don't think a lot of people enjoy report writing, so it was like a gap for me to just slot myself in, where I felt like I feel comfortable in these skills, and it's just about how do I incorporate all this new information about Martian exploration. But that's easy because I love learning about it. It's easy to write about something when you're really curious about it. So I don't know, I guess my general advice for trying to overcome challenges in early career and finding a place for yourself to fit in would be to look for those opportunities to exemplify your best skills, whether that is writing a report, or maybe it's developing a project plan, or maybe it's helping organize across all the different people who are participating. And
yeah, that's really great advice. And I especially liked how you were mentioning the main advice that you were giving was relying on your strengths to, make yourself known in the group and also have your thoughts heard, because instead of focusing on something you might not be as strong in, I think focusing on the strengths or the values or the assets you bring to the group, and being confident with what you're sharing or what you're giving or providing to the group, I think is so important, especially when you're very young and you're kind of new to the group. I think that's really great advice, focusing on your strengths, because a lot of times we tend to focus on what we're not good at and we stress over what we're not good at, but we don't think about all that we do bring to the table. Because if we were selected or we were given the job, clearly we are qualified to some extent to be in that role. I think it's hard to think about it in a positive way. It's just like the quote where they say, the half empty cup is actually also half full, or it could be seen as full because there's half air and half water. I've seen a bunch of different images around that, but it's just, I think it's kind of the same idea. We're just like focus on the positive instead of worrying about things you might not have. So I think that's really great advice.
And like I think it's still worth acknowledging those like the things you want to strive for.
Improve,
and it's just not realistic to expect to be the keynote speaker at the Humans to Mars Summit. 2 years into your career, you've got to work up to those, and just finding, even if it's just like a 5-minute lightning talk, or a poster presentation, finding those opportunities to
build up to it
and work on those skills. It's going to come with time. You have plenty of time ahead of you. That's you mentioned a lot of folks at NASA are on the older side, and they've been doing it for 40 years. Give yourself some slack. You don't need to be at the same level, the first couple of years of your career.
Yeah, that's very comforting to hear. And I think I also agree with just building up to that larger goal you may have. Not every opportunity is going to work. And I think just taking the smaller roles, if you need to like work up to the bigger one, is definitely something, especially in your earlier stages of your career, is important to remember. And kind of now that we're able to understand more about your job, your role, as well as what got you into space and your current kind of like trajectory into the industry, I also am wondering what makes you excited and what makes you curious and excited and nervous for the future of the aerospace industry. Through the conference, we've met so many visionary leaders, and I'm sure some of them maybe changed your perspective or amplified certain ideas you've had. So whether it be about Mars or not, I'm curious about what excites you and what makes you nervous for the future of the aerospace industry.
Sure. Well, what excites me is pretty easy because as I said, there's just so much going on. There's so much possibility. It's like that sci-fi dream is, getting closer and closer to reality every day. And something I think that it surprised me getting into this field is that a lot of the technical challenges for getting humans to Mars aren't that challenging. We have a lot of the know-how to kind of do this kind of mission in the short term. The obstacles that are really kind of in front of us right now are the political momentum and that international collaboration piece as well. So if there's anything that I'm worried about kind of in the industry, I think the biggest one is that we won't build up the will, or we won't be able to, communicate that story that it is achievable, that it does have benefits for our own planet, that it's going to be, radically transformative in a really positive way, just to kind of make a big investment and overcome all the challenges involved with sending humans to Mars. And then I guess I am a bit worried about kind of what's going to happen at NASA in the next, decade or so, because there are a lot of folks on the older side. That's a lot of institutional knowledge that could vanish in a moment. And so something that I'm, personally passionate about is getting students like yourself and other, at colleges and even younger, just excited and interested in the aerospace industry, so that we can keep this momentum going and continue to explore the solar system.
Yeah, definitely. And I would definitely echo those points that you were mentioning. I think there's so many exciting things that are happening in the industry. It's like so rapid, and there's just so many ideas and new jobs opening up. I bet in another 5-10 years, we're not even going to imagine the types of jobs that'll be existing. I think that excites me. And also what you were mentioning about the nervous aspect of, the political tension that we have to overcome, as well as bringing in this diverse ecosystem into the industry as the older population kind of trickles out. I think making sure we're building that like sustainable space environment is so important, because we need more people in the future to work in the industry, because it's rapidly growing, and we need to have the workforce to support that rapidly growing industry. Otherwise, it's going to all just crumble. So definitely will echo what you said. And my last and final question for you is, you've given plenty of advice and insight into, your own personal journey as well as your career. But what is one final piece of advice that you would give for young students regarding their pursuit of a passion in the STEM industry, aerospace industry, really just any career, something that you wish you knew when you were in high school or in college?
Gosh, do I have to limit myself to one? Because we talk to students all the time. There's so much advice, like either general or specific, I could give.
Just something you wish you knew. Just something you wish you knew. Yeah.
I think it's a point that you made earlier, but I really want to reiterate it. Is just how many different ways there are to get involved in the aerospace industry. I mean, it's not, I'd like scientist, engineer, and astronaut. Those are the obvious ones, but we need folks who are really good at telling stories. We need folks who are really good at developing interesting graphics. People need to believe and see the future that we're imagining. We need lawyers. We need accountants. We need and may still be accounting, but you're accounting for space missions. So it's like it's always going to be more interesting, in my opinion, than a lot of other fields. We need policy folks, thank goodness. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a job. But just really like if you're passionate about space exploration, if you want to help like build this future, there's a place for you no matter what skill set you have. And it's just kind of a matter of being pleasantly persistent, asking people about their jobs, learning about those opportunities, and getting your foot in the door.
Yeah, I think you've summed up really the purpose of the YouTube channel in one statement, most literally, because that's the purpose of this interview series, is to highlight those diverse stories. And I can really say when I met you at the conference, I was really excited by your energy, first of all, as well as your background. I was really excited to know that you were coming from this unconventional background that is so necessary in the industry. And so many more people need to be coming from that same background, because communications and writing is critical for increasing the funding for the industry as well. The senators, the politicians are the ones that are being able to increase our budget for the space industry. And they need to be able to understand all of the STEM stuff that we're talking about. It can't just be a bunch of jargon for them. So I definitely agree that, it's so important for everyone to know that they belong, regardless of, first off, their background, their ethnicity or age, but also their skill sets. We need diversity in skills as well. So thank you so much, Bob, for taking your time, really just to break down your journey. I will definitely keep this in my heart for the rest of my life and take your advice to heart. So thank you so much for taking your time. I know I was inspired, and I'm sure everybody else who's listening is definitely inspired as well.
Thanks, Gitika. It was a great time talking to you.